When the Titanic hit the iceberg, almost nobody panicked. For nearly 2 hours, people stood around. Some went back to the cabin, some laughed it off. The ship was unsinkable, that's what they've been told. So why move? The warning had already happened. The iceberg had already torn the side open and people just carried on because the water hadn't reached them yet. It was only in the last half hour when the deck started tilting under their feet. Then the panic hit. And by then, it was too late. 20 lifeboats, 2,200 people. The maths had already failed long before anyone started running. I think most people live their entire lives exactly like that. The iceberg's already hit, the warning's already come, and we carry on because the water hasn't reached us yet. I learned how to read the warning early because when I was just 14, I watched my dad stand up in a crowd full of strangers and scream, "That's my son." And a few months later, I was standing at his grave. That was my iceberg. And it taught me the one question I've spent every year since trying to answer. Who owns my time and how little of it is left? You know, I wasn't born here. I was born in the Philippines. And before anyone hears the Philippines and pictures palm trees and beaches, let me tell you what it actually was. There was a time where me, my mom, my brother, and my grandma were all living in one room. Not a one-bedroom flat, one room. A tiny box, 4 people, 1 space, and barely any food. I know hunger, not the I skipped lunch kind, the kind where you learn not to ask, where you see how little there is and you go quiet because you already know the answer. And asking just makes your mom carry more than she's already carrying. My stepdad is the one who brought me to the UK. That move set everything in motion. Everything you'll hear in the rest of this story happened because of that one door opening. But I want to be honest with you about where the door opened from, because it matters for everything that comes after. I've personally been on the side of need. I've been the kid in the room with not enough, and I'm telling you that not so you feel sorry for me. I don't want that. And Allah took me out of that room a long time ago. I'm telling you because years later, when I sat across from refugees who lit up over something as small as sugar in their coffee, I wasn't watching strangers. I was watching my own family. That room is the bottom of this whole story. Keep it in your mind. Because the question, who owns my time, eventually became a bigger one. What is the time even for? And the answer to that lives back in that room. You know, I love football, but it brings a painful memory. Football was the language between me and my dad. It was the thing we had that didn't need words. Some of the best moments of my entire childhood are just the two of us around the pitch. Him watching, me playing, nothing else needed saying. The last good memory I have with my father, the last one before he was gone, I was 14 years old playing for Bromsgrove Sporting, and I had scored a hat-trick. 3 goals, and my dad stood up in the crowd and he shouted, "That's my son," loud enough that people around him turned to look at who was saying it. A short while after that, my father passed away. A stroke. I was 14. There's no way to dress that up. And there's no business lesson clever enough to make it land softer, so I'm not going to try. One day, I had a dad who stood up and shouted my name in front of strangers, and then I didn't. And the cruelest part, the part that shaped everything after, wasn't even just that he was gone. It was that the time ran out with no warning. That was my iceberg. The hit you don't feel in the moment. Nobody sat me down and said, "You've got this many hours left with him. Use them well." It just stopped mid-sentence. The hours we had around that pitch, that was presence. That was time nothing on this earth could buy back, and it was gone before I even understood the ship was taking on water. That's the wound underneath my whole story. Not money, not status, time. The terror of time running out before you've used it on the people who actually matter, and not realizing until the deck is already tilting. So after he died, I held on to football, like my life depended on it. Because in my head, football was him, and I made my father a promise. In my heart, I told him I'm going to become a football player. I'm going to go all the way, and I'm going to make that's my son means something the whole world can see. And I didn't train like it was a career. I trained it like it was the only thing keeping my dad close. Going pro wasn't a dream to me. It was how I was going to keep him alive. And then I ruptured the ACL in my right knee. If you know football, you know it's one of the worst injuries you can take. And to me, it didn't feel like a knee. It felt like the dream died and the promise died with it. And I'd already buried my dad, and now I felt like I was burying the one thing I had left that was tied to him. And I'm going to be honest with you, because this is a halal channel and we don't fake the perfect Muslim act here. There was anger in me, real anger. Why take him and then take the one I had left to honor him? And then I sat with this. But perhaps you hate a thing and it is good for you, and perhaps you love a thing and it is bad for you. And Allah knows, while you know not. The one every one of us says when something is taken. Indeed, we belong to Allah, and indeed to Him we will return. And slowly, not overnight, slowly I understood something. That closed door wasn't a punishment. It was a redirection. Because here's the thing I missed for years. The promise was never really about football. Football was just the shape the promise took. Underneath it, the actual promise was make him proud. Protect the people I love. Build something with the same closeness he gave me. The injury closed the door on the shape. It never touched the promise. So I stopped slamming my body against a dead door. And I started following where Allah was actually pointing. In that direction, it led me into building, into business, into systems, into everything I do now. It's just the same promise, just kept in a shape the world can't injure. People ask me about the name, Musa. The name traces back to one ayah that gripped me, and it is not for any human being that Allah should speak to him except by revelation or from behind a partition, or that He sends a messenger to reveal by His permission what He wills. Indeed, He is most high and wise. It's an ayah about how Allah communicates with us through inspiration from behind the veil, not loud, not obvious, a pull, a nudge, a voice you almost talk to yourself out of. But let me tell you how He actually got through to me, because it wasn't gentle. I had a question I couldn't put down. What happens after death? Where did He go? Where did any of us go? And I didn't just sit in the grief. I went looking. I read book after book. I went deep into Stoicism, trying to make peace with mortality the way the philosophers did. And I kept reading, kept searching, until everything I read kept pointing me in one direction. It pointed me at Islam. But I hadn't taken the step yet. I was on the edge of it, convinced in my head but waiting. And then something happened that I now believe was the whole point. A close friend of mine scammed me, took my money, and he didn't just do it to me, he did it to another friend too. Shout out Fabian. And I remember sending him that money. And the moment it left my hands, he aired me, ghosted me, gone, like I never existed. The vulnerability is the point, and I was sat there feeling that specific kind of betrayal, the one that comes from someone you trusted. And I did something I'd never really done before. I asked Allah directly. I said, if you're really there, give me a sign. Show me. And the next thing I read, the very next thing was this. Among the people of the book are some who, if entrusted with a hoard of gold, will readily pay it back. Others who, if entrusted with a single silver coin, will not repay it unless you constantly stood demanding. I had just been robbed by someone I trusted. I had just watched a man refuse to give back what was entrusted to him, and I asked for a sign. And Allah answered me with an ayah about exactly that. About the one who won't return what he's been entrusted with unless you stand over him demanding it. And right there and then, I knew that Allah had been watching every single move I made. The betrayal, the question, the asking, all of it seen, none of it missed. That was the moment I took my shahada. And that's the thing about the warnings in your life. The iceberg, the grief, even the betrayal. You think that the end of something, but sometimes the Allah speaking from behind the veil. The scam that broke my trust in people is the exact thing that built my trust in Him. He used the worst thing a person did to me to point me home. So when I look back now, I don't think I found Islam. I think I was being called the whole time. Through a pitch, through a grave, through a knee that gave out, through a friend who took my money and disappeared. Allah was speaking from behind the veil the whole way. And I almost talked myself out of it hearing it. The way most people talk themselves out of the warning until the water's at the door. People ask me why I didn't go to university. I got accepted. I had a place and I gave it up. But let me tell you why. I came home from sixth form one day and I found my mum in the garden, still in her work clothes with a cigarette in her hand. And I'd never seen that before. So I asked her why. And she told me she missed the smell of tobacco because that was the smell of my father. And in that moment, something hit me that I hadn't let myself see. My mum was grieving, quietly on her own, in the garden, in her work clothes. After a full day of work, she was going to keep us going. She was carrying her grief and carrying us, and nobody was carrying her. So I found the university, the place I'd been accepted to, and I cancelled my application because I wasn't going to go study while my mom stood in the garden missing my dad and working herself into the ground. I wanted to give her the rest that she needed. I wanted to be the one who carried something for once. That's why I went and got a job. Super dry, retail assistant. 3.5 years folding clothes, scanning tags, clocking in, clocking out. And let me tell you what that job actually was for me as a Muslim, because nobody talks about this part. I had to ask permission to pray. Think about that. The thing that connects me to my creator, the thing that isn't optional. And I had to go to a manager and ask if I was allowed 5 minutes to stand in front of Allah. And sometimes the answer was, not right now, we're busy. So I delay it. I'd watch the window for Asr closing and I'd be folding jumpers, praying in my heart that I'd actually get to pray before the time ran out. I missed Eid, one of 2 days in the entire year that belongs to us, and I couldn't get it off because other Muslims on the road had already booked it. So while my family was celebrating, while the masjid was full, I was on the shop floor scanning tags. The guilt is real here. And the free mixing, the constant unavoidable closeness with women all day, the environment I had no control over, the low hum of guilt that never switched off because I knew it wasn't how I wanted to be living. I'd come home carrying that, not because I'd done something dramatic, but because every single day chipped at something I was trying to protect. And on top of it all, the plain exhaustion. Showing up when I was running on empty, standing for hours smiling at customers, being switched on when my body and my soul were both telling me they had nothing left. But I was showing up anyway, day after day after day. That's what the cage actually felt like from the inside. It wasn't just the job owned my hours, it's that it kept asking me to hand over little pieces of my deen to keep it. I delayed prayer here, I missed Eid there, a day of guilt I never agreed to, and I told myself that was just the price of having an income. And it was fine, it was honest work, and it had an honest reason behind it. I'm not going to look down on it, but here's what happened. The store shut down. I didn't quit, I didn't get a better offer, the job ended on me. There's no warning, no saying it. One day there's a schedule, an income, a routine, and the next day there's a closed shutter and a thanks for your service. And standing there, I realized something that changed the entire direction of my life. My whole future had been sitting in someone else's hands. My income, my schedule, my security, all of it decided in a room I had never even been in. And the day they decided to pull the plug, I had no control and no safety. Nothing. My future was in someone else's hands. So I went looking for control, and the first thing I found was a camera. I became a videographer, an editor. And let me tell you what that grind actually looked like, because the internet makes it sound glamorous. £25 per video. One, it was about an hour and a half there and an hour and a half back. You do the maths. 3 hours of my day gone for £25. Well, it's more than that. It's like 8 hours because I had to wait for the trims. But the travel cost more than the pay ever did. That's the clearest picture I can give you of trading your time for almost nothing. But I kept going. From the camera, I built a marketing agency. Then I moved into consulting, creative direction, building brands, the whole thing. On paper, it looked like freedom. My own clients, my own name, money started to close in, alhamdulillah. And here's the trap nobody warns you about. I'd escaped one cage and built myself a nicer one, because every single pound I made was still chained to an hour of my own time with the laptop. The agency ran on my hours, the consulting ran on my hours, and even the wins, and there were wins, real ones, every one of them still cost me hours. I was never getting back. I'd left employment, but I hadn't left the time for money trade. I'd just become the self-employed version of the exact same prison. And this is the part I need you to really hear, because it's where most of you are right now. Those years in the cage, that was my 2 hours on the deck. The ship had already been hit. The warning had already come the day I lost my father, but the water hadn't reached me yet. So I told myself I had time. I rearranged the furniture, I built a nicer cabin, and the whole time the deck was tilting and I refused to feel it, until the most sacred month of my year forced me to. Ramadan. I had the honor of being part of a tour with Sheikh Abu Bakr al-Shatri, the world-renowned Quran reciter. It was a charity tour, the Gaza Calling Tour, raising funds for Gaza, and I was there, assisting, serving, present at the recitations. You think about that for a second, bro. One of the most sacred stretches of the entire year, sitting in the presence of the Quran, being recited by one of the most beautiful reciters alive, raising money for people who are being slaughtered, and I couldn't be present because I just had no time. I had clients to fulfill for. I was sat there, in the moment that should have been pure ibadah, pure presence, chained to my laptop. I didn't have time to fulfill for my other clients. That was my half hour left. That was the moment the deck tilted so hard I couldn't pretend anymore. Everything I had built to escape the cage followed me into the holiest month of the year and put the laptop back in my hands during salah time, during dhikr time, during the time that actually mattered for the next life. And here's the thing that broke me about it. I'd left the job that made me ask permission to pray. I'd left the shop floor that took my Eid. I built all of this to get away from handing over pieces of my deen. And here I was in Ramadan on the tour for the Quran, handing them over again. I hadn't escaped the cage. I had just changed who was holding the key. I'd spent years answering who owns my time, and the answer was still not me. And now I could feel exactly how little of it I had been spending on what count. And here's the difference between me and the people on that ship. They felt the panic when there was no lifeboat left. I felt it with just enough time to move. And that was the moment I went looking into AI. Not because of hype, not because it was trendy, for one reason only: to get my time back. I had already proven that a job takes your time, that an agency takes your time, that consulting takes your time. So I went looking for a way to build systems that run the fulfillment, run the engine, without me manning every single hour of it. That search became Musa J Consulting. And that's the whole origin. Not a business plan. A man who'd lost his father to time running out, lost his job to someone else's decision, and lost a sacred Ramadan to a laptop. Finally getting to a lifeboat before the maths failed. The systems run now, and for the first time since I was 14 years old, I have the one thing the job, the agency, and the consulting all took from me. I have my time back. I never have to ask a manager for permission to pray again. I never have to watch an utter window close while I fold someone else's clothes. I can visit friends across different cities. I can be present for the people who matter and the deen that matters. The work still happens, it just doesn't own every hour of my life anymore. The question that started the day my father died finally had the right answer. Who owns my time? I do. But here's what I didn't expect. The second I got my time back, the question changed. It stopped being who owns my time and it became something heavier. What is the time for? Because I could have taken those recovered hours and pointed them to a bigger house, a nicer car, more of me. And for a while, maybe that was the goal. Personal wealth, get mine, and then the charity work put me face to face with the cost of the Ummah's suffering. Gaza, Yemen, real people, and I sat with refugees who lit up over sugar in their coffee. Something so small, and I was right back in that room in the Philippines. 4 of us, barely any food, a kid who had learned not to ask. Allah took me out of that room, and through this business, He handed me back the things I never had growing up, time and money. And I don't think He gave them to me just so I could sit on them. And remember when your Lord proclaimed, if you are grateful, I will surely increase you. The goal shifted from personal wealth to ummah wealth. The money isn't the point anymore, it's the vehicle. The point is to become for someone else's family what my family once needed in that room. That's what the time is for. And there's a saying I can't get out of my head. The demons you don't face in this lifetime, your children will have to face them. Sit with that. If you're in a coaching business or an agency, be honest with yourself for a second. How much of your business lives inside your own head? Your offers, your scripts, your client notes, the follow-ups you keep meaning to send. The content ideas you forget by the time you sit down to film. It's all up here. And every single day you wake up and you have to carry all of it. of it again. Most people think the answer is to work harder or to hire a team or to buy another course, but it isn't. The reason you feel so stretched out isn't that you're lazy, it's that you are the only system your business has. You're the CRM, content, the admin, the memory, and no human can hold all of that without something slipping. So I want to show you a different way. I want to show you why I call the AI second brain. The AI second brain isn't a course and it isn't another app to log into. It's an actual second brain that sits outside your head and runs the business with you. Think of it in two layers. The first is a single place where your entire business is written down. Every client, every offer, every script, every decision, all in one connected vault, not scattered across notebooks and voice notes and 12 browser tabs. One place. The second layer is the intelligence on top. An AI that can read everything in that vault, remember all of it, and actually do the work with you. Let me show you the skeleton because of how it fits together. Because once you see it, you can't see it. First, you externalize. Everything in your head comes and goes into that vault, and that alone changes your life because now your business doesn't disappear the moment you close your laptop or get pulled away. Second, you give the AI memory, and this is the part nobody talks about. A normal chatbot forgets the second you close it, but the second brain remembers. It knows your last client call, it knows your offer, it knows how you speak, so you never start from zero again. Third, you turn that memory into action. Instead of typing a long prompt every time, you give it one simple instruction and it does the task the way you would have done it. Writing the script, prepping for the call, drafting the follow-up, the same quality in a fraction of the time. And that's the skeleton. A vault that holds your business, an AI that remembers it, and simple instructions that put it into work. And everything else is just built on top of those three bones. And I want to be honest about why this matters to me, not just as a business thing. The Prophet ﷺ said that the best of people are those who are most beneficial to people. And that hadith is graded Hasan. So ask yourself, if most of your week is eaten by admin and chasing and forgetting, how much of your actual benefit is reaching the people you're put here to serve? Your knowledge is an amana, and it was never meant to die in your head or burn you out. And the second brain exists to take the weight off you. So the real you, the teacher, the one with the message, is the part that Ummah actually gets. Now here's the thing, what I've just walked you through is the structure, the foundation, and I've put together a free setup that gives you exactly that. The skeleton wired and ready with guided manuals and short videos so you can stand it up yourself, even if you've never touched any of this before. And I'm putting something else in your hands with it, my full asymmetrical operator workbook, the same one my paid clients work through, the whole 8-week system written out that shows you how to turn AI into an unfair advantage, and whether you want to start your own AI agency from scratch or build one into the coaching you already do. So if you want it, it's right below this video. Put your details into the form and my team will send a free AI second brain setup straight over to you. Build the foundation first, and once you've seen what the empty system can do, you'll understand exactly what becomes possible when it's fully wired to your business. Go ahead and grab it now and I'll see you on the inside. May Allah put barakah in your time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.